I can't leave them out there. I just can't." Eleanor Hartman was 74 years old, alone broke her heater. Broken for 8 months. She had every reason to ignore that knock. But when she opened the door, 2 boys stood there, a 7-year-old clutching his 6-year-old brother, both blue-lipped, ice in their hair, barely breathing. "Please," the older one whispered. "My brother can't feel his hands anymore." She pulled them inside without asking who they were. She didn't know their fathers led the Hells Angels. She didn't know that by morning, 150 motorcycles would surround her house, and her life would never be the same. The blizzard hit Iron Ridge, Montana without warning. One moment the sky was gray but manageable. The next, it turned into a wall of white fury that swallowed everything in its path. Visibility dropped to 0. The wind howled like something alive, something angry, something that wanted to hurt. Inside the Iron Horse bar on the edge of town, 150 Hells Angels had gathered to wait out the storm. They'd been riding through Montana on their way to a memorial run in Billings when the weather report turned ugly. Jack Morrison, the club president, made the call to stop. "We're not riding through that," he said, looking out the window. "Not with the kids." Danny Reeves, the vice president, nodded. His son Mason was only 6 years old. Jack's boy Lucas was 7. Both kids had been riding along in the support van, excited about their first long trip with their fathers. "Smart call," Danny said. "Storm's supposed to pass by morning." The bar owner, a retired Marine named Chuck, had welcomed them without hesitation. He knew the Iron Reaper's MC by reputation, rough around the edges, but honorable. They paid their tabs, respected the locals, and never started trouble unless someone else did first. The men settled in. Coffee poured. Conversation flowed. Someone started a poker game in the corner. The kids, Lucas and Mason, sat at a table near the window, bored out of their minds. "This is so boring," Mason whined. He kicked his feet against the chair legs, his small face scrunched up in frustration. Lucas, a year older and already showing signs of his father's serious nature, looked at his friend. "Dad said we have to stay inside." "But look at the snow!" Mason pressed his face against the window. "It's so cool. We could make snow angels. We could have a snowball fight." "The storm's too bad." "It doesn't look that bad." Lucas looked outside. The snow was falling thick and fast, but Mason was right, it didn't look impossible. Not yet. The wind hadn't picked up to full force, and they could still see the parking lot. "Maybe just for a few minutes," Lucas said slowly. "Just right outside the door." Mason's face lit up. "Really? Just for a few minutes. And we stay close." The boys looked around. Their fathers were deep in conversation with other club members discussing routes and weather patterns. No one was paying attention to them. Lucas grabbed his jacket. Mason did the same. They slipped toward the side door, the one that led to the back parking lot, and stepped outside. The cold hit them immediately sharp and biting, but the boys didn't care. They were kids. They were invincible. Mason scooped up a handful of snow and threw it at Lucas, who ducked and laughed. "You missed." "Did not. They played for 5 minutes, then 10. The snow kept falling, and somewhere in those 10 minutes everything changed. The wind shifted. It came from the north, sudden and violent, carrying ice particles that stung like needles. The snow that had been falling in thick, soft flakes turned into a horizontal assault of white. Within seconds, Lucas couldn't see the building anymore. "Mason!" he shouted. "Mason, where are you? I'm here!" Mason's voice came from somewhere to his left, high-pitched and scared. "Lucas, I can't see anything." Lucas stumbled toward the voice, his hands outstretched. He found Mason's arm and grabbed it, pulling the younger boy close. "I got you," Lucas said. "I got you. Don't let go." "Where's the door?" Lucas turned around, trying to orient himself. Everything was white. Every direction looked the same. He'd only walked maybe 20 feet from the building, but it might as well have been 20 miles. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice shaking. "I can't see it." Mason started crying. "I want my daddy. Lucas, I want my daddy." I know. We have to find the door." Lucas picked a direction and started walking, holding Mason's hand so tight his knuckles turned white, but the wind pushed against them, stealing their breath, filling their eyes with ice. Every step was a struggle. "Lucas, I'm cold." "I know. Keep walking." "My hands hurt." "I know. Keep walking." They walked for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The cold seeped through their jackets, their jeans, their boots. Mason's crying turned to whimpers, then to silence, and that silence scared Lucas more than anything. Mason, talk to me." "I'm tired." "Don't be tired. Stay awake." "I can't feel my fingers anymore." Lucas stopped walking. He didn't know where they were. He didn't know which direction led to safety. All he knew was that his best friend, his little brother in every way that mattered, was freezing to death beside him. He pulled Mason close, wrapping his arms around the smaller boy, trying to share whatever warmth he had left. "I'm sorry," Lucas whispered. "I'm sorry, Mason. This is my fault. I'm not mad at you. I shouldn't have let us go outside. I wanted to go too." Lucas felt tears freeze on his cheeks. He was 7 years old, and he was going to die in a snowstorm because he wanted to play. His father was going to find his body in the spring frozen solid, and it would be his own stupid fault. "We have to keep moving," Lucas said, but his voice was weak now, uncertain. "I can't." "Yes, you can. Come on." He pulled Mason forward one step at a time, moving in what he hoped was a straight line. The wind howled, the snow buried them, and somewhere in the white void, Lucas Morrison refused to give up. Inside the Iron Horse Bar, Jack Morrison was laughing at something one of his brothers had said when he noticed the empty chairs. His smile faded. "Where's Lucas?" Danny looked up from his phone. "What? Lucas, where is he?" Jack stood up, scanning the room. "Where's Mason?" Danny's face went pale. He jumped to his feet, knocking over his chair. Mason! The room went quiet. Every man in the place stopped what they were doing. "Lucas!" Jack called out, his voice cutting through the silence. "Lucas, answer me!" "Nothing." Chuck, the bar owner, pointed toward the back. "I saw them near the side door maybe 15-20 minutes ago." 20 minutes. Jack's heart stopped. He ran to the side door and threw it open. The storm hit him like a physical blow. Wind and ice and snow slammed into his face, stealing his breath. He couldn't see more than a foot in front of him. "Lucas!" he screamed into the void. "Lucas!" The wind swallowed his voice. Danny appeared beside him, his face twisted with terror. "Oh God! Oh my God! They went out there! Get everyone!" Jack said, his voice barely holding together. "Get everyone now!" Within 2 minutes, 150 Hell's Angels were mobilizing. They grabbed flashlights, jackets, anything they could use. They formed search parties, assigned directions, established check-in times. But the storm didn't care about their organization. The storm didn't care that they were fathers searching for their sons. The storm just kept raging. Jack pushed into the white void, screaming his son's name until his throat was raw. He walked in expanding circles from the building, checking every drift, every shadow, every shape that might be a small body. Nothing. "Lucas? Lucas, where are you?" The wind answered with nothing but howling rage. Danny searched in the opposite direction, his voice joining Jack's in a desperate chorus. "Mason, Mason, baby, call out. Let me hear you." Hours passed. The sun began to set, and with it went any hope of finding the boys before nightfall. The temperature dropped to 20 below zero. No child could survive that. No adult could survive that. "We have to call off the search," Chuck said, his face grim. "At least until morning." "No," Jack's voice cracked. "No, I'm not stopping. Jack, you'll die out there. Then I'll die looking for my son." Danny grabbed Jack's arm. "He's right. We can't see anything. We're just walking in circles." "I'm not leaving him out there, Danny." I know. Danny's eyes were red, his cheeks wet with frozen tears. "But if we die, we can't help them. We have to wait. We have to pray." Jack Morrison had never been a praying man. He'd done things in his life that he figured disqualified him from God's attention. But standing there in the howling wind, facing the possibility that his 7-year-old son was dying somewhere in the darkness, he prayed. He prayed harder than he'd ever prayed for anything. 3 miles away, Eleanor Hartman sat in her small house, wrapped in every blanket she owned. The heating system had failed 8 months ago. She couldn't afford to fix it. She couldn't afford much of anything anymore. The medical bills from her husband Walter's cancer treatment had wiped out everything: their savings, his life insurance, their retirement fund. $47,000 in debt, and no way to pay it. Walter had died 2 years ago, right there in the bedroom, his hand in hers. Since then, Eleanor had been surviving. Not living, surviving. She ate the cheapest food she could find. She wore 3 layers of clothing indoors. She closed off most of the house to concentrate what little heat remained in the living room and kitchen. Tonight, she sat in her chair with a cup of weak tea, listening to the storm rage outside. The radio had warned about this blizzard for days, but Eleanor had lived in Montana her whole life. She'd seen bad storms before. This one was different. This one felt angry. She was about to go to bed, not that she'd sleep much, not in this cold, when she heard it. A knock. Weak. Barely audible over the wind. But definitely a knock. Eleanor frowned. No one knocked on her door anymore. She hadn't had a visitor in over a year. Her neighbors had stopped checking on her months ago. She was invisible, forgotten, just another old woman waiting to die. The knock came again, weaker this time. Eleanor stood up, her joints protesting, and walked slowly to the door. She looked through the peephole but couldn't see anything, just white. She hesitated. Opening the door to strangers during a blizzard was dangerous. Stupid, even. But something made her reach for the handle anyway. She opened the door. The wind rushed in, carrying snow and ice, and Eleanor gasped. 2 small figures stood on her porch, children barely standing, covered in white. The older one was holding the younger one up, his arms wrapped around the smaller boy's chest. "Please," the older boy whispered. His lips were blue. His eyes were glassy. "My brother, he can't feel his hands anymore." Eleanor didn't think. She didn't ask questions. She grabbed both boys and pulled them inside, slamming the door against the storm. "Come here," she said, her voice shaking. "Come here, babies. Come here." She guided them to the couch, her hands trembling as she felt how cold they were. Their clothes were soaked through with melted snow. Their skin was like ice. "What are your names?" she asked, already pulling blankets from the closet. "Lucas," the older one managed. "That's Mason." Mason wasn't responding. His eyes were half closed, his body limp. Eleanor felt a spike of fear. Mason, sweetheart. Can you hear me?" A tiny nod. Nothing more. Okay, we need to get you warm. Lucas helped me get his jacket off." They worked together, Eleanor's arthritic fingers fumbling with zippers and buttons, Lucas helping despite his own exhaustion. They got both boys out of their wet clothes and wrapped in blankets, every blanket Eleanor owned, layer after layer. She turned on the broken heater. It groaned and sputtered, producing a pathetic stream of lukewarm air, but it was something. "Stay here," Eleanor said. "I'm going to make you something warm to drink." She went to the kitchen and put water on the stove. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the pot. Those boys had been minutes from death. Minutes. If they'd been out there any longer, if they hadn't found her house. She made hot chocolate, the cheap powder kind, but it was all she had. She brought 2 mugs to the boys and helped them drink, holding the cups to their lips when their hands shook too much. "Slowly," she said. "Small sips. That's it." Lucas drank obediently, but his eyes never left Mason. "Is he going to be okay?" "He's going to be fine," Eleanor said with more confidence than she felt. "He just needs to warm up." "I shouldn't have let us go outside. It's my fault." "Hush now. Don't think about that." "My dad's going to be so mad." Eleanor looked at the boy, this child who'd just walked through a blizzard, who'd held his friend up when he couldn't walk anymore, who'd somehow found her house in the darkness. He was 7 years old, and he'd saved both their lives. "Your dad is going to be so proud of you," she said softly. "You kept Mason safe. You found help. You're a hero, Lucas." Lucas's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not a hero. I'm scared." "Heroes are always scared, sweetheart. That's what makes them brave." Mason stirred his eyes, opening a little wider. Where are we?" "You're safe," Eleanor said. "You're in my house. You're going to be okay." "Are you an angel?" Eleanor almost laughed. No one had called her anything in 2 years. Now this half-frozen child was asking if she was an angel. "No, baby. I'm just an old woman with a lot of blankets." "You feel like an angel." Eleanor blinked back tears. "Just rest now. Both of you. Rest." The boys fell asleep within minutes, exhausted beyond measure. Eleanor sat in her chair, watching them breathe, making sure their chests kept rising and falling. The heater wheezed. The storm raged. And somewhere in Iron Ridge, she knew someone was looking for these children. She checked Lucas's jacket and found a piece of paper in the inside pocket, a phone number written in neat handwriting. Emergency contact. Eleanor picked up her old landline and dialed with trembling fingers. It rang once, twice. Then a man's voice answered, rough and raw. "Yeah." Eleanor's throat tightened. I think I have your boys." Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Then barely a whisper. "What?" "2 boys, Lucas and Mason. They came to my door. They're safe. They're here with me." She heard the man's breath catch. She heard something break in his voice, something that had been holding together through sheer willpower finally giving way. "They're alive. They're alive. They're warming up. They're going to be okay." Oh, God. The man was crying now, not hiding it, not trying to. "Oh, thank God. Where are you? Tell me where you are." Eleanor gave him the address. "We're coming," the man said. "We're coming right now. Don't let them out of your sight." "I won't, I promise." The line went dead. Eleanor set the phone down and took a shaky breath. She looked at the two sleeping boys, these strangers who had knocked on her door, who had stumbled into her life in the middle of a blizzard, and felt something she hadn't felt in 2 years. Purpose. She didn't know who their parents were. She didn't know what was about to happen. But she knew with absolute certainty that opening that door was the best decision she'd made since Walter died. Jack Morrison dropped the phone and turned to the crowd of anxious men behind him. "They're alive," he said, his voice cracking. "Someone found them. They're alive." The room erupted. Men shouted, some cheered, some cried openly. Danny Reeves dropped to his knees, his head in his hands, sobbing with relief. "Where?" someone asked. Jack gave the address. Within seconds, engines were roaring to life. 150 motorcycles prepared to ride through the worst blizzard in 30 years. "Wait," Chuck said. "You can't ride in this. The roads are impassable." "Watch us," Jack said. They rode in formation headlights, cutting through the snow, moving slowly but steadily through streets buried under 3 feet of white. They rode past abandoned cars, past snowdrifts taller than their bikes, past a world transformed into a frozen wasteland. Nothing was going to stop them. Nothing. 20 minutes later, they reached a small house on Cedar Street. The lights were on. Smoke comes from a chimney that looked like it hadn't been used in years. Jack killed his engine and walked to the front door on legs that felt like they might collapse at any moment. He knocked. The door opened. An old woman stood there, small, gray-haired, wrapped in a worn sweater. She looked at him with tired eyes that held more kindness than Jack had ever seen. "You must be the father," she said softly. "Please. Please, I need to see them." She stepped aside. Jack walked into the small living room and saw them. His son wrapped in blankets on the couch, asleep, but breathing. Alive. His legs gave out. He dropped to his knees beside the couch and touched Lucas's face, his hair, his shoulder. Real, alive. His boy was alive. Lucas's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, confusion, then recognition, then relief so powerful it shattered them both. "Dad!" Lucas threw his arms around Jack's neck, holding on like he'd never let go. "I got you," Jack whispered, his voice breaking. "I got you, buddy. I got you." Danny pushed past them and found Mason on the other end of the couch. He gathered his son in his arms and held him rocking back and forth, crying without shame. "Daddy, I'm here, baby. I'm here. You're safe now." Eleanor stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face, watching fathers reunite with sons. She pressed her hand to her chest and felt her heart pounding, felt something other than emptiness for the first time in 2 years. Outside, 148 other men waited in the snow engines, idling, watching through the windows. Some of them were crying too. All of them were grateful. Jack finally looked up at Eleanor, really looked at her. This old woman in her small, cold house who had opened her door in a blizzard and saved his son. "You saved them," he said. "You saved my boy." Eleanor shook her head. "I just let them in." "No." Jack stood up, still holding Lucas's hand. "You saved them. If they hadn't found your house." He couldn't finish. Danny stood too, Mason clinging to his neck. "We owe you everything." Eleanor didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to this, to attention, to gratitude, to mattering. She'd been invisible for so long that being seen felt almost uncomfortable. "I'm just glad they're okay," she said quietly. Jack looked around the small house. He saw the broken heater struggling to produce warmth. He saw the thin curtains that did nothing to keep out the cold. He saw the empty refrigerator visible through the kitchen doorway. He saw poverty. He saw struggle. He saw a woman who had given everything she had to 2 children she didn't know. "What's your name?" he asked. "Eleanor. Eleanor Hartman." "Eleanor." Jack repeated it like he was memorizing it. "I'm Jack Morrison. This is Danny Reeves. And these," he gestured to the men visible through the window. "These are our brothers." Eleanor looked outside and finally registered what she was seeing. Motorcycles. Dozens of them. Men in leather jackets covered in patches standing in the snow. Hell's Angels. She should have been afraid. Any sensible person would have been afraid. But Eleanor looked at Jack's tear-stained face, at the way Danny held his son, at the relief and gratitude in every pair of eyes watching her through the window, and felt no fear at all. These weren't dangerous men. These were fathers. "Thank you for coming," she said simply. "Would anyone like coffee? I don't have much, but—" Jack almost laughed. This woman, this incredible woman, had just saved 2 children from freezing to death, and she was offering them coffee. "No, ma'am," he said. "We're fine, but we're not leaving yet." Eleanor looked confused. "You're not—" "No." Jack's eyes were serious now, intense. "We need to make sure you're okay too." "Me, I'm fine. Your heater's broken." Eleanor glanced at the struggling appliance. "It still works, mostly. In the middle of winter in Montana." "I manage." Jack exchanged a look with Danny. Something passed between them, a silent conversation, an agreement. "We're going to help you," Jack said. "Like you helped us." "Oh no, that's not necessary. Really, I don't need—" "Eleanor." Jack's voice was gentle but firm. "Please, let us help you." Eleanor started to protest again, but then she looked at Lucas, who was watching her with those serious eyes. She looked at Mason, who was already falling back asleep in his father's arms. She thought about the cold house, the empty refrigerator, the bills piling up on her kitchen counter. She thought about 2 years of doing everything alone. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." Jack nodded. Then he turned to the window and made a gesture to the men outside. Within seconds, they were moving, carrying things from their bikes, organizing themselves with military precision. "What are they doing?" Eleanor asked. "Taking care of you," Jack said. "Like you took care of our boys." Eleanor sat down, slowly overwhelmed, as dozens of strangers filed into her house, carrying blankets, heaters, food, and something else she hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. The men worked through the night. Eleanor watched from her chair, too overwhelmed to move, as strangers filled her house with warmth and noise and life. Someone had brought a portable heater that actually worked. Someone else had gone to the 24-hour grocery store and returned with bags of food. Real food, meat, vegetables, bread, things she hadn't been able to afford in months. Lucas and Mason slept through most of it, exhausted beyond measure. Their fathers took turns sitting with them, touching their hair, their faces reassuring themselves over and over that the boys were real, alive, safe. By 3 a.m, most of the men had gone back to the Iron Horse bar to sleep. Only Jack, Danny, and a few others remained. Eleanor had tried to tell them to leave, that she was fine, that they didn't need to stay. They ignored her. "You should get some rest," Jack said, sitting across from her at the kitchen table. "It's been a long night." "I could say the same to you." Jack smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I don't think I'll sleep for a week." "I understand." They sat in silence for a moment. The new heater hummed steadily, filling the house with warmth Eleanor had almost forgotten existed. "How long has it been like this?" Jack asked quietly. "Like what? The heater, the empty refrigerator, He gestured vaguely at the worn furniture, the peeling wallpaper, the general state of gentle decay. Eleanor stiffened. "I manage." "That's not what I asked." She looked at him, this rough man with tattoos on his knuckles and grief still fresh in his eyes, and felt something crack inside her. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the relief. Maybe it was simply that someone was finally asking. 2 years, she said. Since my husband died. Jack nodded slowly. Tell me. You don't want to hear an old woman's problems. Yes, I do. Eleanor didn't know why she trusted him. She didn't know why the words came so easily after 2 years of silence. But they did. His name was Walter. We were married for 48 years. He was a good man. Worked at the lumber mill his whole life. Never complained, never asked for much. Just loved me and our little house and our quiet life. She paused, her throat tightening. Then he got sick. Lung cancer. Stage 4 by the time they found it. Jack's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. The doctor said there wasn't much they could do. 6 months, maybe. But I couldn't accept that. I couldn't just watch him die without fighting. So we tried everything. Treatments, experimental drugs, specialists in other cities. Anything that might give us more time. Did it work? Eleanor smiled sadly. It gave us 8 more months. 8 months where he could still smile, still hold my hand, still tell me he loved me. So yes, it worked. And then he died. Right there in that bedroom, I was holding his hand. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. He wasn't in pain anymore. He wasn't alone. That's what matters. Jack reached across the table and squeezed her hand. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. After the funeral, the bills started coming. Eleanor continued. Thousands of dollars. Then tens of thousands. I didn't know how much everything had cost until it was over. The treatments, the hospital stays, the medications. I had spent everything we had. Our savings, his life insurance, our retirement, everything. How much? Eleanor hesitated. She had never told anyone the full amount. It felt like admitting failure, like confessing that she had somehow done something wrong. $47,000. Jack's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. I've been paying what I can, Eleanor said quickly. $20 here, $50 there, but it barely makes a dent, and meanwhile everything else keeps falling apart. The heater broke 8 months ago. The roof leaks when it rains. The car died last spring. Do you have family, anyone who can help? Walter and I never had children. We tried for years, but... She shook her head. And both our families are gone now. I have a cousin in Florida, but we haven't spoken in years. So it's just me. Friends. I used to have friends. People from church neighbors, people I worked with before I retired. But after Walter died, they kind of drifted away. I think they didn't know what to say. Or maybe I pushed them away. I don't know. When was the last time someone visited you? Eleanor thought about it. Before tonight, over a year. Jack closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, there was something fierce in his gaze. That's not okay. It is what it is. No, it's not okay. You saved my son's life tonight. You saved Danny's boy. You opened your door in a blizzard and took in 2 strangers without asking anything in return. And you've been living like this, alone, struggling for 2 years. I don't need... Yes, you do. Everyone needs help sometimes. Even stubborn old women who think they can do everything themselves. Despite herself, Eleanor laughed. You sound like Walter. Then Walter was a smart man. They sat in silence again, but it was different now. Warmer. Something had shifted between them, a connection formed in the space between tragedy and relief. "We're going to help you," Jack said finally. "Not because we have to, because we want to. You've already done enough. The heater, the food. That's not enough. Jack. Eleanor." His voice was gentle but firm. "You gave us our sons back. Nothing we do will ever be enough to repay that. But we're going to try." Eleanor didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to kindness. She wasn't used to mattering. "Just thank you," she whispered. "No, thank you." Morning came slowly, gray light filtering through the curtains. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind a world buried in white. Eleanor woke in her chair, stiff and sore to the smell of coffee and bacon. She blinked in confusion. She didn't have bacon. She couldn't afford bacon. "Good morning." Danny stood in her kitchen doorway, holding a spatula. Behind him, she could see Lucas and Mason sitting at her small table eating eggs and toast like they hadn't eaten in days. "I hope you don't mind," Danny said. "The boys were hungry." No, of course not." Eleanor stood up slowly, her joints protesting. "You didn't have to cook. My wife says I make the best scrambled eggs in Montana. Couldn't let the boys miss out." Lucas looked up and saw Eleanor. His face lit up with a smile that made her heart ache. "Miss Eleanor, you're awake." "I am, sweetheart. How are you feeling?" "Better, much better." He held up his hands, wiggling his fingers. "I can feel everything again." "Me too," Mason added, his mouth full of eggs. "Danny says we're lucky." "You are lucky," Eleanor said, sitting down at the table. "Both of you. Dad says you're a hero." Eleanor felt her cheeks warm. "I'm not a hero. I just opened my door." "That's what heroes do," Lucas said seriously. "Dad told me, heroes don't think about themselves. They just help." Eleanor looked at this 7-year-old boy, who had carried his friend through a blizzard, who had refused to give up even when everything seemed hopeless, and felt tears prick her eyes. "Then you're a hero too," she said. "You saved Mason. You kept him alive." Lucas looked down at his plate. "I was scared." "Being scared doesn't mean you're not brave. It means you're human." Mason reached over and put his hand on Lucas's arm. "You're my best friend. And you saved me. We saved each other." Eleanor watched the two boys, so young, so innocent, so unaware of how close they had come to dying, and felt something shift in her chest. For 2 years her house had been empty, silent, cold, and now it was full of life, full of laughter, full of something she had forgotten existed. Family, not by blood, not by law, but by choice, by circumstance, by a knock on a door in the middle of a blizzard. Jack came in from outside, stomping snow off his boots. "Roads are clearing up. We should be able to head out in a few hours." "Already?" Mason's face fell. "I don't want to go." "We have to get home, buddy. Your mom is worried sick." "Can we come back? Can we visit Miss Eleanor?" Jack looked at Eleanor, then back at his son. "Yeah, we can come back. Promise, promise." Eleanor stood up and began clearing dishes needing something to do with her hands. Danny took the plates from her gently. "I've got this. You sit." "I can't just sit while you do all the work." "You can. You will." He smiled at her. "Consider it repayment for the hospitality." Eleanor sat back down, feeling useless and grateful at the same time. She watched Danny wash dishes, watched the boys finish their breakfast, watched Jack make phone calls to reassure worried family members. She was surrounded by strangers who felt like anything but. Around noon, the first motorcycles started leaving. Men came to the door one by one to say goodbye, to thank her, to shake her hand or hug her. Eleanor lost count of how many. "Thank you, ma'am." "God bless you. You're an angel. We won't forget this." By the time the last one left, Eleanor was exhausted all over again. She sat in her chair, overwhelmed, watching the snow melt in the afternoon sun. Jack and Danny were the last to go. They stood in her doorway with the boys ready to leave, but something held them back. "Eleanor," Jack said, his voice serious, "I want you to take my number. If you need anything at all, you call me." "I couldn't. Please, it would make me feel better." She took the card he offered, looked at the number written in neat handwriting, and tucked it into her pocket. "Thank you." "No, thank you." Jack stepped forward and hugged her. A real hug, the kind that said more than words could express. Danny did the same. Then Lucas. Then Mason. "Bye, Miss Eleanor." Mason said, his small arms wrapped around her waist. "I love you." Eleanor's heart cracked open. "I love you too, sweetheart." "We'll come back," Lucas promised. "We said we would. I'll be here." And then they were gone. The roar of engines filled the street, then faded into the distance, and Eleanor was alone again. She stood in her doorway watching until the last motorcycle disappeared around the corner and felt something she hadn't felt in 2 years. Loss. Not the crushing grief of losing Walter. Something smaller. Something bittersweet. The loss of connection. The loss of being seen. She closed the door and looked around her house. It was warmer now. The new heater hummed steadily. The refrigerator was full. The blankets the men had left behind were stacked neatly on her couch. But it felt emptier than before. That night, Eleanor sat in her chair with a cup of tea and cried. Not because she was sad exactly, but because for one day, one beautiful day, she hadn't been alone. And now she was again. She didn't know that 50 miles away, Jack Morrison was sitting in his own living room with his son sleeping beside him, making a decision that would change everything. She didn't know that Danny Reeves had already started making phone calls. She didn't know that 150 men were about to turn their gratitude into action. All she knew was that she was tired and cold, despite the new heater, and more alone than she had ever been in her life. 3 weeks passed. Eleanor fell back into her routines: wake up, eat, watch, television, go to bed. The excitement of that night faded like a dream. She started to wonder if it had even been real. The bills kept coming. She paid what she could and ignored the rest. The collection agencies called twice a day. She stopped answering the phone. One morning, she woke to the sound of engines. At first, she thought she was dreaming. Then she heard it again, that low rumbling sound that could only mean one thing: motorcycles. Eleanor walked to her window and looked outside. Her heart stopped. There must have been 50 of them, maybe more. They filled her street, lined up one after another, engines idling in the cold morning air. She saw Jack get off his bike and walk toward her door. Danny was right behind him, and behind them more men than she could count. Her hands shook as she opened the door. "Jack, what's happening?" Jack smiled, but there was something in his eyes, something emotional, something big. "Can we come in?" "Of course. Yes, of course." They filed in, filling her small living room until there was barely space to move. Eleanor backed up against the wall, overwhelmed, confused. "I don't understand," she said. "What's going on?" Jack reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "Eleanor, after we left, we couldn't stop thinking about you. About what you did for our boys. About what you've been going through." "Jack, please, let me finish." He held out the envelope. "We wanted to help. So we did." Eleanor took the envelope with trembling hands. It was thick, heavy. She opened it. Inside were papers. Official documents with logos and numbers. She pulled them out, confused, and started reading. Her eyes went wide. This is from the hospital." "Keep reading." She scanned the page, her heart pounding. "Balance $0. Account status paid in full." "I don't understand," she whispered. "This says..." "We paid it," Jack said simply. "All of it." Eleanor looked up at him, unable to process what she was hearing. "But that's $47,000. "We know." How did you..." "We fundraised," Danny said. "The club, other chapters, friends, family. Everyone wanted to help. We organized charity rides, reached out to businesses. The community came together." "But why would you do this for me?" Jack knelt down in front of her, taking her hands in his. "Because you didn't hesitate. When 2 freezing kids showed up at your door, you didn't ask who they were. You didn't worry about yourself. You just helped. And people like that, Eleanor, people like you deserve to be helped in return." Eleanor stared at the papers in her hands. 0 balance, paid in full. 2 years of debt, 2 years of collection calls, 2 years of barely surviving gone. Just like that. "There's more," Danny said. "More." Jack reached into his jacket again and pulled out a second envelope. "We raised more than we needed, and we all agreed it's yours." Eleanor opened the second envelope. Inside was a check. $25,000. "No," she said immediately. "No, I can't accept this." "Yes, you can." "It's too much. I can't." "Eleanor." Jack's voice was firm but kind. "You've spent 2 years struggling alone, taking care of yourself with nothing. You saved our children with a broken heater and an empty refrigerator. This money is for you, for a new heating system, for repairs, for whatever you need to live comfortably." "I don't deserve this." "You deserve more than this. You deserve everything." Eleanor broke down. The tears came fast and hard, and she couldn't stop them. She cried for Walter, for the 2 years of loneliness, for the debt that had crushed her, for the strangers who had become family, for the unexpected grace of being seen. Jack held her while she sobbed. The other men stood respectfully, some wiping their own eyes. "Thank you," she managed between breaths. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." "But I do. I have to." She pulled back, looking at all of them. "You've given me my life back. I was barely surviving. I was just waiting to die, and you've given me a reason to live." "You gave us the same thing," Jack said quietly. "You reminded us why we ride together, why we call ourselves a brotherhood. It's not about the bikes. It's about being there when someone needs you. It's about family." Eleanor looked around the room at all these men, rough, tattooed, intimidating men, and saw something she hadn't expected. Kindness. "There's one more thing," Danny said. "More? What more could there possibly be?" Danny grinned and nodded toward the front door. 2 men were carrying something inside, a brand new heating system still in the box. "Figured we'd install it ourselves," Danny said. "Save you the labor costs." "And we brought groceries," another man added, holding up bags. "Enough for a month." And we fixed the leak in your roof this morning, someone else chimed in. Before you woke up. Eleanor laughed through her tears. You've all gone crazy. Maybe, Jack said, but it's the good kind of crazy. They stayed all day. They installed the new heating system, fixed the leaky faucet in the kitchen, patched the hole in the bathroom wall, and organized her pantry with enough food to feed an army. Eleanor tried to help, but they wouldn't let her. Sit, they said. Rest. Let us take care of you. So she sat. She watched. And she marveled at how quickly her life had changed. By evening, the work was done. The men gathered into her living room, eating pizza and drinking beer, laughing and talking like old friends. I don't know how to thank you, Eleanor said, standing in the doorway. Any of you. You already did, Jack said. That night in the blizzard, you already did. This feels like so much more than that. It isn't. It's exactly even. Maybe we still owe you. He smiled. We'll have to keep coming back to make sure. You don't have to. We want to. That's the point. We want to. One by one, the men said goodbye. They hugged her, shook her hand, promised to return. Eleanor thanked each one, memorizing faces, names, stories. Jack and Danny were the last to leave again. Every Sunday, Jack said at the door. We'll stop by. Check on you. Make sure everything's okay. You don't have to do that. We want to. And the boys want to see you. They've been asking about you every day. Eleanor's heart swelled. Tell them I miss them too. I will. Jack paused, then reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. A patch. He pressed it into her hand. What's this? Honorary member. You're one of us now, Eleanor, whether you like it or not. She looked at the patch, the club's symbol, a skull with angel wings, and felt tears threatening again. I don't know what to say. Say you'll be here on Sunday. Say you'll let us keep coming back. Eleanor looked at this man who had started as a stranger, who had become something like a son, and nodded. I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. Jack hugged her one last time, and then he was gone. The engines roared to life, filled the street with thunder, and faded into the distance. Eleanor stood in her warm house, holding the patch in her hand, and realized something. She wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in 2 years, she wasn't alone. The first Sunday came faster than Eleanor expected. She woke at 5 in the morning, too anxious to sleep. She cleaned her house twice, rearranged the furniture, then put it back the way it was. She baked cinnamon rolls from scratch, something she hadn't done since Walter died. By 9 o'clock, she was sitting in her chair, watching the clock, wondering if they would actually come. Maybe they had forgotten. Maybe it was just something people said to be polite. Maybe she had imagined the whole thing, built it up in her mind into something it wasn't. Then she heard the engines. Eleanor jumped up so fast her knees protested. She walked to the window and saw them pulling up 6 motorcycles in formation. Jack was in front, Danny right behind him, and in the support van that followed 2 small faces pressed against the glass. Lucas and Mason. Eleanor opened the door before they could knock. Miss Eleanor! Mason was out of the van and running toward her before Danny could stop him. He crashed into her legs, hugging her so hard she almost fell over. Careful, buddy, Danny called out. She's not a tackle dummy. It's okay. Eleanor laughed, hugging him back. I missed you too. Lucas was more reserved, hanging back until Eleanor opened her arm to him. Then he joined the hug, his face pressed against her side. We brought you something, he said. You didn't have to bring me anything. We wanted to. He pulled back and handed her a piece of paper folded carefully. I drew it. Eleanor unfolded it. A crayon drawing of a small house with snow around it. 2 stick figures stood at the door, and a larger figure with gray hair was letting them in. At the top, in careful letters, "Thank you for saving us." Eleanor's throat tightened. "Lucas, this is beautiful." Mason helped with the colors. "I did the snow," Mason added proudly. "And the sun." "It's perfect. I'm going to put it on my refrigerator." "Really? Really?" Jack walked up, carrying a bag of groceries. "Hope you're hungry. Danny's wife sent enough food for an army." "Yeah, she didn't have to do that." "Try telling her that. Sarah's been cooking all week. She wanted to come, but someone had to watch the other kids." "Other kids?" "Danny's got 3. Mason's the youngest." Eleanor looked at Danny with new eyes. 3 children, and you still found time to help me." Danny shrugged. "Family's family. Besides, Sarah would have killed me if I didn't." They filed into her house, filling it with noise and warmth. Someone started coffee. Someone else unpacked the groceries. The boys ran around exploring, touching everything, asking questions. "What's this?" "That's an old radio. Walter and I used to dance to it." "Can we turn it on?" "Of course." Mason fiddled with the dial until static crackled. Then music, old swing music, the kind Eleanor hadn't heard in years. "My grandma listens to this," Lucas said. "It's good music. They don't make it like this anymore." "Can you dance to it?" Eleanor laughed. "I used to. My knees don't work so well anymore." "I'll help you." Mason grabbed her hand and started bouncing completely off rhythm. "Come on, Miss Eleanor. Dance with me." And she did. For the first time in 2 years, Eleanor danced. Badly slowly, with aching joints and a full heart, but she danced. Jack watched from the doorway, his coffee cup in his hand, something soft in his eyes. "She's good with them," Danny said quietly beside him. "Yeah, she is." The boys haven't stopped talking about her. Mason told his teacher he has a new grandma. Jack smiled. "What did Sarah say?" "She cried. Then she made 3 casseroles." They spent the whole day together. They ate lunch at Eleanor's small table, crowded together, passing dishes back and forth. The boys told stories about school. Danny complained about his neighbor's dog. Jack talked about a charity ride the club was planning. Eleanor mostly listened, soaking it in, barely believing this was her life now. "You're quiet," Jack said during a lull. "Just taking it all in." "Good quiet or bad quiet?" Eleanor looked around the table at these people who had become her family. Good quiet. The best kind. That night, after everyone left, Eleanor sat in her chair with the drawing in her hands. She traced the crayon lines with her finger, smiling at the uneven letters. "Thank you for saving us." She had saved them, but they had saved her too, and she was only beginning to understand how much. The Sundays became a ritual. Every week they came. Sometimes it was just Jack and Danny with the boys. Sometimes other club members joined. Sometimes their wives came too, bringing food and laughter and noise. Eleanor's house, which had been silent for 2 years, was never silent anymore. She learned their names. Marcus, the mechanic who could fix anything. David, the quiet one, who grew tomatoes in his backyard. Ray, who looked terrifying but cried at sad movies. Big Tony, who wasn't actually that big but had earned the nickname in a story no one would explain. She learned their stories too. Divorce addiction, loss, redemption. These men had lived hard lives, made hard choices, survived hard times. And somehow they had found each other. "Why do you do it?" Eleanor asked Jack one Sunday, while the others were in the backyard teaching the boys to throw a football. "Do what?" "The club, the riding, all of it." Jack thought for a moment. When I was young, I didn't have anyone. My dad left when I was 3. My mom worked herself to death trying to keep us fed. She died when I was 19. I'm sorry. After that, I was lost, angry, making bad decisions. He looked out the window at his brothers. Then I found them, and they became my family, the family I never had. You built something beautiful. We built something real, that's different. Eleanor nodded slowly. I think I understand. I think you do too. Jack turned to face her. You lost Walter. You spent 2 years alone, but you didn't let it make you hard. You kept your door open. You kept your heart open. That's rare, Eleanor. That's special. I don't feel special. Special people never do. 3 months passed, then 6. The Sundays continued, but now there were other days too. Wednesdays when Danny would stop by with coffee. Fridays when the boys would come for after-school cookies. Random afternoons when someone just happened to be in the neighborhood. Eleanor's calendar, which had been empty for years, was now full. But it was a Tuesday in July when everything changed again. Eleanor was in her garden planting tomatoes David had given her when she saw Jack's motorcycle pull up. He wasn't supposed to come today, and he was alone. She stood up, wiping dirt on her apron. Jack, is everything okay? His face was serious. Can we talk inside? Her heart dropped. Is it the boys? Are they? The boys are fine. Everyone's fine. He walked toward her. I just need to tell you something. They went inside. Eleanor sat in her chair. Jack sat across from her, leaning forward, his elbows on his knees. Eleanor, I've been thinking. About what? About you, about us, about what happens next. I don't understand. Jack took a deep breath. The club is organizing a big event, a charity fundraiser. We're going to raise money for families in need, people going through what you went through. That's wonderful. We want you to be part of it. Eleanor blinked. Me. What could I possibly do? You could tell your story, help us find people who need help, organize, coordinate whatever you want. He paused. You know what it feels like to struggle alone. You know what people need, and you know how to help. Jack, I'm 74 years old. I'm not. You're exactly what we need. His voice was firm. Eleanor, you've spent your whole life taking care of others. Your husband, your community, now the boys. It's time for you to be part of something bigger, something that matters. Eleanor sat in silence, processing. For 2 years, she had felt useless, invisible, a burden on a world that had moved on without her. And now this man was offering her purpose. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need. But Eleanor already knew her answer. She had known it the moment he asked. Yes, she said quietly. Yes. Yes. I'll do it. I want to help. Jack's face broke into a smile. You're sure? I'm sure. Walter would have wanted me to. And I want to. Jack stood up and pulled her into a hug. Thank you, Eleanor. You won't regret this. I know I won't. After he left, Eleanor sat in her chair and cried. Not sad tears this time. Not even happy tears exactly. Grateful tears. For 2 years she had waited to die. Now she was finally ready to live. The fundraiser was bigger than Eleanor had imagined. It started as a local event, a charity ride through Iron Ridge, with an entry fee that went to families in need. But word spread. Other chapters heard about it. Other clubs. Other communities. By the time the day arrived, over 300 motorcycles had registered. Local businesses had donated prizes, food money. The newspaper ran a story. The television station sent a crew, and at the center of it all was Eleanor. She had spent 6 weeks organizing, coordinating, making phone calls, writing letters. She had found 3 families in Iron Ridge alone who were struggling with medical debt just like she had been. She had helped them fill out applications, connected them with resources, held their hands when they cried. "You're amazing at this," Danny told her the night before the event. "I'm just doing what anyone would do." "No, you're doing what you do. And it's extraordinary." The morning of the ride, Eleanor stood in the parking lot of the Iron Horse Bar, watching motorcycles arrive from every direction. Hundreds of them filling the streets, the noise so loud she could feel it in her chest. Jack found her in the crowd. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Terrifying. Amazing. I don't know." That's exactly how it should feel. She watched as riders signed in, paid their fees, picked up their route maps. She watched families arrive to receive help, crying and grateful and overwhelmed. She watched strangers become friends, enemies become allies, a community become something more. And when it was time for the ride to begin, Jack handed her a helmet. "What's this? You're riding with me." "Jack, I can't." "Yes, you can. You're part of this, Eleanor. You need to be part of the ride." She looked at the helmet, then at the sea of motorcycles, then back at Jack. "Walter would have loved this," she said softly. "Then let's do it for him." Eleanor put on the helmet. She climbed onto the back of Jack's motorcycle, her heart pounding, her hands shaking. She wrapped her arms around his waist and held on tight. And when the engines roared to life, when 300 motorcycles began to move as one, Eleanor Hartman laughed. She laughed like she hadn't laughed in years, like she was young again, like she was alive. The ride took 4 hours. They wound through Iron Ridge, past the lumber mill, where Walter had worked, past the hospital, where he had died, past Eleanor's little house on Cedar Street. As they passed her house, Eleanor looked at it through new eyes. It wasn't the place where she had been lonely. It was the place where Lucas and Mason had knocked on her door. It was the place where her life had changed. It was home. When the ride ended, they gathered at a park outside town for food and speeches and celebration. Jack stood on a small stage and addressed the crowd. 18 months ago, he said, my son and Danny's son got lost in a blizzard. They should have died, but a woman we'd never met opened her door and saved them. He looked at Eleanor standing at the front of the crowd. Eleanor Hartman didn't know who those boys were, didn't know what they meant to us. She just knew they needed help. And she helped. The crowd was silent, listening. After we found out what she'd done, we learned something else. We learned that she'd been struggling, alone, for 2 years, medical debt, a broken heater, no family, no friends, no one to help. He paused, his voice catching. We paid off her debt. We fixed her house. But that wasn't enough. Because Eleanor didn't just need money. She needed family. She needed purpose. She needed to know that she mattered. Jack gestured to the crowd, to the hundreds of people who had come together for this moment. This fundraiser raised over $80,000 today. That money will help a dozen families, but it wouldn't have happened without Eleanor. She organized it. She found the families. She made it real. He stepped down from the stage and walked to Eleanor, taking her hand. This woman saved my son. She saved my brother's son. And today she helped save a dozen more families. He turned to the crowd. I think that makes her a pretty damn good angel, don't you? The crowd erupted. Cheers, applause, whistles. Eleanor stood there, overwhelmed, tears streaming down her face. Jack hugged her tight. Welcome to the family, he whispered. For real this time. That night, Eleanor sat in her living room, exhausted but happy. The boys were asleep on her couch, too tired to make the trip home. Jack and Danny sat at her kitchen table drinking coffee, talking quietly. She looked around at her house, at the people in it, at the life she had built from nothing. 1 year ago, she had been alone, invisible, waiting to die. Now she had Sunday dinners. Now she had purpose. Now she had family. And it had all started with a knock on her door. "Eleanor," Jack called from the kitchen. "Yes?" "Come here. We need to show you something." She walked to the kitchen, curious. Jack and Danny were both grinning. "What is it?" Jack held up his phone. "The news station just posted their story about the fundraiser." "Okay. It's gone viral. 2 million views in 4 hours. Eleanor stared at him. 2 million. People are donating from all over the country. The GoFundMe we set up has already raised another $50,000. 50,000 on top of the 80, on top of the 80. Danny was grinning ear to ear. "Eleanor, you started something. Something big." Eleanor sat down heavily, unable to process what she was hearing. "I just wanted to help a few families," she said weakly. "You did. And now you're helping hundreds, maybe thousands." Jack showed her the phone. Comments from all over the world. People sharing the story. People donating. People crying because an old woman in Montana had opened her door to 2 freezing children. "This is insane," Eleanor whispered. "This is you," Jack said. "This is what happens when good people do good things. It spreads." Eleanor looked at the comments, the names, the faces. People she would never meet, lives she would never know, all connected by a single act of kindness. "Walter would be so proud," she said, her voice breaking. "We're all proud," Danny said. "Every single one of us." That night, after everyone was asleep, Eleanor stepped outside and looked up at the stars. "I wish you could see this," she whispered to Walter. "I wish you could see what's happening." The stars didn't answer. They never did. But somewhere in the silence, Eleanor felt something. A warmth, a presence, a feeling that she wasn't as alone as she had thought. "I'm okay now," she said softly. "I'm finally okay." She went back inside, checked on the sleeping boys, and went to bed. For the first time in years, she slept through the night. The news story changed everything. Within a week, Eleanor's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters wanted interviews. Charities wanted partnerships. Strangers wanted to thank her. She had lived 74 years in quiet anonymity, and now suddenly everyone knew her name. "I don't understand," she told Jack one morning. "I didn't do anything special." "You saved 2 kids in a blizzard." "Anyone would have done that." "No, Eleanor, they wouldn't have. That's the point." The donations kept pouring in. The GoFundMe passed 100,000, then 200,000, then 500,000. People from every state, every country sending money and messages and prayers. Eleanor read every single comment. "You remind me of my grandmother. I lost my mom to cancer. Thank you for fighting for families like ours. You're proof that good people still exist." She cried at her kitchen table, overwhelmed by the love of strangers. But not everyone was celebrating. 3 weeks after the story broke, Eleanor answered her door to find a woman standing there. Middle-aged, well-dressed, expensive perfume. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Mrs. Hartman?" "Yes." "I'm Diane Crawford. I'm with the Montana Department of Social Services." Eleanor felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Social Services? May I come in?" Eleanor stepped aside, her heart pounding. The woman walked in, looked around, made notes on a clipboard. "Is there a problem?" Eleanor asked. "We've received some concerns." "Concerns about what?" About your relationship with the Morrison and Reeves children. Eleanor went still. My relationship? You're not a family member. You have no legal connection to these boys, yet they spend significant time in your home. Some people find that concerning. Unconcerning I saved their lives. I understand that. But the law requires us to investigate any situation where unrelated adults are spending extensive time with minor children. Eleanor's hands started shaking. Who reported this? Diane's smile was thin. I'm not at liberty to say. This is insane. Jack and Danny bring the boys here. Their parents are always present. Not always. According to our information, the children have slept overnight at your residence on multiple occasions. When their parents were here too. Mrs. Hartman, I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm simply following protocol. Eleanor sat down heavily, her legs suddenly weak. What does this mean? It means we'll be conducting an investigation, interviewing the families, reviewing the situation, making sure everything is appropriate. And if you decide it's not appropriate, Diane's expression gave nothing away. We'll cross that bridge if we come to it. After the woman left, Eleanor sat in silence for a long time. Then she picked up her phone and called Jack. Eleanor, what's wrong? Social Services was just here. What? They're investigating me. Someone reported that I'm spending too much time with Lucas and Mason. Jack's voice went cold. Who reported it? She wouldn't say. I'm coming over. Right now. He arrived 20 minutes later with Danny right behind him. Both men were furious. This is harassment, Danny said, pacing the living room. Pure and simple harassment. Someone's targeting you, Jack added. This isn't random. But who, why? Jack and Danny exchanged a look. What? Eleanor asked. What aren't you telling me? Jack sat down across from her. After the fundraiser, some people got jealous. The attention, the money, the media coverage. Not everyone was happy about it. What people? There's another chapter in Billings. Their president, a guy named Vince Caruso, has been talking trash for months. Says we're getting soft. Says we're more interested in publicity than the club. Danny nodded grimly. He was at the charity ride, made a few comments about Eleanor, said she was just a prop, a way to make us look good. Eleanor felt sick. You think he reported me? I think it's possible. But why? What does he gain? If Social Services takes the boys away from you, it makes us look bad. It makes the whole thing look like a scam. People will question everything, the fundraiser, the donations, all of it. Eleanor pressed her hands to her face. I can't believe this is happening. Eleanor, listen to me. Jack took her hands in his. We're going to fight this. We have lawyers. We have resources. We're not going to let anyone take you away from those boys. But what if they do? What if the investigation finds something? There's nothing to find. You've done nothing wrong. That doesn't always matter. Jack's jaw tightened. It will matter this time. I promise you. The investigation lasted 6 weeks. 6 weeks of interviews, home visits, background checks. 6 weeks of Eleanor answering the same questions over and over. 6 weeks of Lucas and Mason asking why they couldn't come over anymore. It's just temporary, Jack told the boys. Just until the investigation is done. But we miss Grandma Eleanor, Mason said, his lip trembling. I know, buddy. She misses you too. Eleanor stayed home during those 6 weeks. She stopped answering the phone. She stopped reading the comments online. She stopped doing anything except waiting for the nightmare to end. The loneliness came back worse than before, because now she knew what she was missing. Now she knew what it felt like to have family, and losing it was unbearable. On week 4, she called Jack in the middle of the night. Eleanor, it's 2 a.m. What's wrong? I can't do this anymore. Can't do what? Any of it. The waiting. The uncertainty. The fear. Her voice broke. Maybe it would be better if I just disappeared. If I moved away. Then they couldn't hurt you or the boys. Eleanor, stop. Stop right now. I'm serious. I'm causing problems for everyone. You'd all be better off without me. That's not true. That's not even close to true. Jack, no. Listen to me. His voice was fierce. You are family. You don't abandon family. Ever. No matter what. But, no buts. We're going to get through this together. All of us. And when it's over, when we've beaten this, we're going to have the biggest Sunday dinner you've ever seen. And we're going to laugh about this. Do you understand me? Eleanor was crying now. I'm so tired, Jack. I'm so tired of fighting. I know. But you don't have to fight alone. That's the whole point. That's what family means. She didn't respond. She just cried. And Jack stayed on the phone, listening, waiting, being there. I love you, Eleanor, he said finally. We all do. And we're not going anywhere. I love you too, she whispered. All of you. The investigation ended on a Tuesday. Eleanor was in her garden when Diane Crawford pulled up. She stood slowly, her heart pounding, prepared for the worst. Mrs. Hartman. Ms. Crawford. The woman looked different today. Less cold. Almost apologetic. I wanted to deliver the news in person. What news? The investigation is closed. We found no evidence of any inappropriate behavior. You're free to continue your relationship with the Morrison and Reeves families. Eleanor's knees went weak. What? Furthermore, we've identified the source of the original complaint. It was made anonymously, but we traced it to an individual with no legitimate concern for the children's welfare. The complaint has been dismissed as malicious. Vince Caruso. Diane's expression flickered. I'm not at liberty to confirm that. But the investigation is over. It's over. Eleanor started crying. Right there in her garden in front of this government official, she sobbed with relief. Mrs. Hartman, I owe you an apology. Eleanor looked up, surprised. I was doing my job, but I should have seen sooner that this was a vendetta, not a genuine concern. You're clearly a wonderful person who loves those children very much. Thank you, Eleanor managed. Thank you for telling me. Diane nodded and walked back to her car. Eleanor watched her go, still trembling. Then she went inside and called Jack. It's over, she said. They closed the investigation. She heard him exhale. Thank God. Thank God. Can I see the boys now? Eleanor, you can see them anytime you want, for the rest of your life. That Sunday they came early. Lucas and Mason burst through the door like they hadn't seen her in years, instead of weeks. Grandma Eleanor. She knelt down and caught them both, holding them so tight she thought she might never let go. I missed you, Mason said into her shoulder. I missed you so much. I missed you too, sweetheart. More than you know. Lucas pulled back and looked at her seriously. Dad said some bad people tried to take you away from us. They tried, but they didn't succeed. Because we're family. Because we're family. The house filled up quickly. Jack and Danny, their wives, the other club members, everyone who had been waiting for this moment. They brought food and drinks and noise and life. Eleanor stood in her kitchen, watching them all, feeling something she had almost forgotten existed. Joy. Jack found her there, leaning against the counter, smiling. How does it feel? He asked. Like coming home. You never left. It felt like I did. Those 6 weeks, I thought I'd lost everything again. Jack put his arm around her shoulders. You're never going to lose us, Eleanor. Never. No matter what happens, no matter who tries to come between us, we're family. That means forever. Eleanor leaned into him. I believe you. Good, because I mean it. Later that evening after dinner, after the dishes were done, Jack stood up and clinked his glass. I have an announcement. The room went quiet. As most of you know, the club has an annual gathering every fall. It's our biggest event of the year. Leaders from every chapter come together to celebrate our brotherhood. He looked at Eleanor. This year we're doing something special. We're going to honor the people who've made a difference in our lives. The people who remind us what family really means. Danny stood up beside him. We've been talking about this for months. We wanted to wait until the investigation was over to make it official. Jack reached into his jacket and pulled out a leather vest. Black, worn, covered in patches. But in the center, a new patch Eleanor had never seen before. Eleanor Hartman. Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. You saved my son. You saved Danny's son. You've organized fundraisers, helped families in need, and reminded every single one of us why we do what we do. He walked over to her and held up the vest. At this year's gathering, in front of every chapter, every leader, every member of our brotherhood, we're going to make it official. You're being inducted as an honorary member of the Iron Reapers MC. Eleanor stared at the vest. She couldn't speak. This patch, Jack continued, pointing to the center, says Guardian Angel, because that's what you are. You're our angel, and we want the whole world to know it. The room was silent. Everyone was watching her. I don't know what to say, Eleanor finally managed. Say you'll accept. She looked at the vest, at the people surrounding her, at the family she had found in the most unexpected place. I accept, she whispered. Of course I accept. The room erupted. Cheers, applause, hugs. Mason was jumping up and down. Lucas was grinning ear to ear. Danny's wife was crying. Jack helped Eleanor put on the vest. It fit perfectly. How does it feel? He asked. Eleanor looked down at the patches, at the symbol of belonging she had never expected to wear. It feels like home, she said. It feels exactly like home. The gathering was held in late October in a massive lodge outside Billings. Eleanor had never seen so many motorcycles in one place. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, filling the parking lot, lining the roads, stretching as far as she could see. And at the center of it all, she was terrified. I can't do this, she told Jack as they pulled up. There are too many people. You can do this. You've done harder things. Like what? Like surviving 2 years alone. Like opening your door in a blizzard. Like standing up to a government investigation. Eleanor took a deep breath. When you put it that way. That's because I'm smart. She laughed, despite herself. Modest, too. The ceremony was held that evening. Eleanor sat in the front row with Jack and Danny watching as awards were given, speeches were made, accomplishments were celebrated. Then, it was her turn. Jack walked to the podium. Most of you have heard the story. Last winter, 2 boys got lost in a blizzard. They knocked on a stranger's door. That stranger didn't hesitate. She brought them inside, saved their lives, and became family. He paused, looking at Eleanor. But there's more to the story. That woman had just lost her husband. She was drowning in debt. She was alone, forgotten, invisible. And instead of giving up, instead of turning those boys away, she gave them everything she had. He gestured to Eleanor. This woman taught us what family really means. Not blood, not obligation. Choice, sacrifice, love. He held up the vest with the Guardian Angel patch. Eleanor Hartman, please come up. Eleanor's legs shook as she walked to the stage. The crowd was silent. Hundreds of faces all watching her. Jack placed the vest over her shoulders. By the power vested in me as president of the Iron Reapers MC, I hereby induct Eleanor Hartman as an honorary member of our brotherhood, She is family. She is protected. She is ours. The room exploded. Applause, cheering, whistling. Hundreds of people on their feet, honoring an old woman who had simply opened her door. Eleanor stood there, tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed by the love of strangers who had become family. Lucas ran up from the crowd and hugged her. "You did it, Grandma Eleanor. You're one of us now." Mason was right behind him. "Forever and ever." Eleanor held them both, crying and laughing at the same time. "Forever and ever," she agreed. "Forever and ever." Later that night, after the ceremony, after the celebration, Eleanor stood outside the lodge, looking up at the stars. Jack found her there. "What are you thinking about?" "Walter? I'm thinking about Walter." "What would he say if he could see you now?" Eleanor smiled. "He'd say I look ridiculous in leather." Jack laughed. And he'd say he's proud of me, that he's happy I found a new family, that he never wanted me to be alone. He sounds like a good man. He was the best man I ever knew." She paused. "Until I met you." Jack's eyes glistened. "Eleanor, I mean it. You gave me my life back. You gave me purpose, family, love. I don't know how to thank you for that." "You don't have to thank me. That's what family does." Eleanor reached up and touched his face. "Your mother would be so proud of you, Jack. She raised a good man." Jack's composure cracked. For just a moment he was a boy again, missing his mother, wishing she could see what he had become. "Thank you," he whispered. They stood together in the darkness, two people who had found each other against all odds, who had become family through choice and love and sacrifice. And in that moment, Eleanor knew that everything she had lost, everything she had suffered, had led her here. To this place. To these people. To home. Winter returned to Iron Ridge exactly 1 year after the blizzard that changed everything. Eleanor stood at her kitchen window, watching the first snowflakes fall, and felt nothing but peace. The fear was gone. The loneliness was gone. Everything that had haunted her for 2 years had been replaced by something stronger. Family. The house smelled like cinnamon and fresh bread. She had been baking since dawn, preparing for the anniversary celebration. 1 year since Lucas and Mason had knocked on her door. 1 year since everything changed. "Grandma Eleanor." The front door burst open, and Mason ran in, his cheeks red from the cold, his smile lighting up the room. "Slow down, buddy," Danny called from behind him. "She's not going anywhere." Mason ignored his father and crashed into Eleanor's legs. "I made you something at school. Did you? It's a picture, for the refrigerator." He held up a crayon drawing similar to the one Lucas had made a year ago, but more detailed now. A house with smoke rising from the chimney, a woman with gray hair standing in the doorway, 2 small figures running toward her, arms outstretched. At the top, in careful letters, "My grandma's house." Eleanor's throat tightened. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. I drew you bigger this time, because you're important. You're important too." "I know." He grinned. "Dad tells me every day." Danny came in shaking snow from his jacket. "He's been talking about this all week. Couldn't wait to give it to you." "It's perfect." Eleanor hung the drawing on her refrigerator right next to Lucas's original. "Now I have a collection." Lucas walked in behind his father, more reserved than Mason, but equally excited. He carried a wrapped package in his hands. "This is from me," he said quietly. "Dad helped me pick it out." Eleanor took the package and opened it carefully. Inside was a small photo frame, and in the frame was a picture she had never seen before. Her standing in the middle of a group shot at the charity ride, surrounded by bikers laughing. "Where did you get this?" "Someone took it at the fundraiser. Dad had it printed." Eleanor studied the image. She looked happy. She looked alive. She looked like someone who belonged. "I love it," she said softly. "I love it so much." Jack arrived an hour later with the rest of the group. The house filled up quickly, just like it always did now. 20 people, 30, all crammed into her small living room, eating and laughing and celebrating. Eleanor watched them from her chair, still amazed that this was her life. "You okay?" Jack asked, sitting down beside her. "More than okay. Hard to believe it's been a year. Feels like forever. And also like yesterday." Jack nodded. "Time's funny like that." "Jack, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "That night when the boys knocked on my door, did you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't answered?" Jack's jaw tightened. "I try not to." "But you have thought about it." "Every single day. Every time I look at Lucas, I think about how close we came to losing him, and then I think about you and I thank God you were there." I almost didn't answer. Jack looked at her sharply. "What? The knock was so weak. I thought I imagined it. I almost went back to bed." "But you didn't." "No. Something made me check." "What?" Eleanor was quiet for a moment. "I think it was Walter. I think he was telling me to open the door." Jack didn't laugh. He didn't dismiss it. He just nodded slowly. "Maybe he was." "I like to think so. I like to think he knew what was coming, what they would mean to me, what all of you would mean to me." "You believe in that stuff, angels' messages from beyond," Eleanor smiled. "I didn't used to. But after everything that's happened, I believe in something. I believe that love doesn't end when someone dies. I believe that the people we lose are still looking out for us." "That's a nice way to think about it." "It's the only way I can make sense of it. How a knock on my door in the middle of a blizzard led to all of this." She gestured at the room full of people. "It has to mean something." "It does mean something. It means you're a good person. It means you did the right thing when it mattered most. And you did the right thing too. You could have just said thank you and walked away, but you came back. You kept coming back. We couldn't leave you alone. Not after what you did for us. That's exactly my point. Most people would have left. Most people would have paid off my debt and called it even, but you built a family instead." Jack was quiet for a moment. "My mom used to say that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays when things get hard." She sounds like a wise woman. She was. She would have loved you. I wish I could have met her. Me too. The doorbell rang, interrupting their conversation. Danny went to answer it. "Eleanor, there's someone here to see you." She stood up, curious. Through the crowd, she saw a young woman in her 20s, dark hair, nervous expression. She was holding a baby in her arms. "Mrs. Hartman?" "Yes." The woman stepped forward hesitantly. "My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm one of the families you helped, from the first fundraiser." Eleanor's face lit up with recognition. "Sarah, of course. How are you? How's the baby? That's why I'm here." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to thank you. In person. To show you what you did." She held out the baby so Eleanor could see. "This is Eleanor. Eleanor Grace Mitchell. I named her after you." Eleanor's hand went to her chest. "You named her after me. You saved us. The medical bills from my husband's accident were destroying us. We were going to lose our house. I didn't know what we were going to do." Sarah's voice broke. "And then you found us. You made sure we got help. You called me personally to check on us. You remembered my birthday. I just did what anyone would do." "No, you did what you did. And because of you, we kept our house. My husband finished his physical therapy. And we had this baby." She looked down at the infant. "I wanted her to have your name because I want her to grow up knowing what kindness looks like." Eleanor reached out and touched the baby's tiny hand. Eleanor Grace Mitchell. A new life named after her. A legacy she never expected. "She's beautiful," Eleanor whispered. "She is. And she's here because of you." The room had gone quiet. Everyone was watching. Some of the women were crying, even some of the men. Jack stepped up beside Eleanor. "This is what you've done. This is what you've built. Not just for us, but for people you've never met. People who needed hope." Eleanor looked around the room at all the faces, all the lives that had intersected with hers in ways she could never have predicted. "I didn't do anything special," she said. "I just opened my door." "That's the most special thing anyone can do," Sarah said, "opening the door when it would be easier to keep it closed." The celebration continued, but something had shifted. The anniversary wasn't just about Eleanor anymore. It was about everyone she had helped, everyone who had helped her, the entire network of kindness that had grown from a single moment of compassion. Later that evening, after most of the guests had left, Eleanor found herself in the kitchen with Jack, Danny, Lucas, and Mason. The boys were eating leftover cake. The men were drinking coffee. The house was quiet now, peaceful. "I have something to tell you," Jack said. "That sounds serious." "It is, but good serious." He pulled out a folder and set it on the table. "What's this? Open it." Eleanor opened the folder and found documents, legal papers, official-looking forms. "I don't understand." "The charity we started after the fundraiser, the one that helps families with medical debt. It's grown, a lot." Danny leaned forward. "We've helped over 200 families in the past year. Raised over $1 million. Eleanor's eyes went wide. $1 million? And it's still growing. We've got chapters in 3 states now. Other motorcycle clubs are getting involved. Businesses are partnering with us." Jack tapped the folder. "These are the incorporation papers. We're making it official. A real non-profit foundation." "That's wonderful. There's more." Jack hesitated. "We want to name it after you." Eleanor stared at him. "What? The Eleanor Hartman Foundation, for families in crisis. That's what we want to call it." "Jack, I can't." "Yes, you can. You started this. You're the reason any of it happened. Your name should be on it." "But I didn't do anything. I just opened your door," Danny finished. "Yeah, you keep saying that, but opening your door started a movement. It showed people what's possible when we take care of each other." Eleanor looked at the papers, at the names, at the official stamps and signatures. "A foundation. With my name on it. If you'll let us." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Lucas and Mason, who were watching her with wide eyes. "What do you think, boys? Should I say yes?" "Yes," Mason shouted immediately. "Say yes, Grandma Eleanor." Lucas nodded seriously. "You should do it. You help people. That's what you do." Eleanor smiled. "Then I guess I'm saying yes." Jack's face broke into a grin. "Really? Really? But I have one condition. Anything. I want to be involved, not just my name on a building. I want to help. I want to meet the families, write the letters, make the calls. I want to do the work." "That's exactly what we were hoping you'd say." They shook hands, but it turned into a hug. Then Danny hugged her too. Then the boys jumped up and joined in, turning it into a group embrace that made everyone laugh. "This is insane," Eleanor said when they finally let go. "A year ago I was alone. Now I have a foundation named after me. A year ago my son was lost in a blizzard. Now he has a grandmother who loves him. Jack's voice was thick with emotion. I think we're even. The first snow of the season continued to fall outside, covering Iron Ridge in a blanket of white. Eleanor walked to the window and watched it come down. Behind her, she could hear the boys playing Jack and Danny, talking, the sounds of family filling her house. Walter, she whispered, too quiet for anyone else to hear. Can you see this? Can you see what's happened? The snow fell silently. The house was warm, and somewhere deep in her heart, Eleanor felt an answer. He could see. He was proud, and he had never left her, not really. 2 months later, on the coldest night of the year, Eleanor's phone rang at 3 in the morning. She fumbled for it in the darkness, her heart pounding. Hello? Eleanor, it's Jack. Something in his voice made her sit up. What's wrong? There's been an accident. A house fire on the south side of town. A family is trapped. Oh God. The fire department is on the way. But Eleanor, there's something you need to know. What? The family. It's Sarah Mitchell, the woman who named her baby after you. Eleanor's blood went cold. Sarah, is she okay? Is the baby okay? I don't know. I'm heading there now. I thought you'd want to come. I'll be ready in 5 minutes. Jack picked her up in his truck and they drove through the dark streets in silence. The night was bitter cold, the kind of cold that kills. When they arrived at the scene, Eleanor's heart sank. The house was engulfed in flames. Fire trucks surrounded it, hoses spraying water that froze almost as soon as it left the nozzles. Neighbors stood in the street, watching in horror. Have they gotten anyone out? Eleanor asked a firefighter. The husband and 2 older kids. They're in the ambulance. And the woman, the baby. The firefighter's face was grim. Still inside. The stairs collapsed. They can't reach the 2nd floor. Eleanor grabbed Jack's arm. We have to do something. The firefighters are doing everything they can. It's not enough. Sarah is in there. Baby Eleanor is in there. Eleanor, you can't. But she was already moving, pushing through the crowd, shouting at anyone who would listen. There's a baby in there. You have to get her out. A firefighter stopped her. Ma'am, we're doing everything we can. The structure is unstable. We can't send anyone else in. Then I'll go in. Ma'am, that's not possible. She named her baby after me. That little girl exists because I helped her family. I am not going to stand here and watch them die. The firefighter looked at her with something like respect. I understand, but if we lose you too, we haven't saved anyone. Eleanor felt tears freezing on her cheeks. She looked at the burning house, at the flames consuming everything, and felt completely helpless. Then she heard it. A cry. Faint, barely audible over the roar of the fire, but unmistakable. A baby's cry. There! Eleanor pointed to a 2nd floor window. I heard something. The firefighters turned. For a moment, nothing. Then the cry came again, louder this time. She's at the window. The mother is at the window. Everything happened fast after that. A ladder extended. A firefighter climbed. And minutes later, Sarah Mitchell was being lowered to safety. Baby Eleanor clutched to her chest. They were alive. Eleanor pushed through the crowd as Sarah was brought to the ambulance. The young mother was covered in soot, coughing, shaking, but alive. Sarah? Oh my God, Sarah! Sarah looked up, saw Eleanor, and started crying. She saved us. The baby saved us. What do you mean? We were trapped. The smoke was so thick I couldn't see anything. I didn't know which way to go. And then Eleanor cried. She cried so loud it woke me up, made me think clearly. I followed her voice to the window. Eleanor looked at the baby in Sarah's arms. Baby Eleanor Grace, who had cried loud enough to save her own life and her mother's. She's a fighter, Eleanor whispered. Just like her namesake. Just like you. They loaded Sarah and the baby into the ambulance. The husband and older children were already inside, all of them crying with relief. Before the doors closed, Sarah grabbed Eleanor's hand. Thank you, she said, for everything. For a year ago. For tonight. For giving my daughter a name worth living up to. She lived up to it all on her own. She learned from the best. The ambulance drove away, lights flashing against the snow. Jack put his arm around Eleanor. You okay? I am now. That was close. Too close. But they made it. They made it. Eleanor looked at the burning house, at the firefighters still battling the flames, at the snow falling gently on a scene of devastation and hope. This is what it's about, she said quietly. This is why we do what we do. What do you mean? The foundation? The fundraising? All of it. It's not about money. It's about this, being there when people need us, showing up when everything is falling apart. You really believe that? I have to believe it, because if I don't, then what's the point? Jack hugged her tighter. The point is love. That's always been the point. Spring came early that year. The snow melted, the flowers bloomed, and Iron Ridge came back to life. The Eleanor Hartman Foundation officially launched in April, with a ceremony at the Iron Horse Bar where everything had begun. 300 people attended. Bikers' families, politicians, journalists. Everyone who had been touched by the movement that started with a knock on a door. Eleanor stood on a small stage, looking out at the crowd, still amazed that any of this was real. 2 years ago, she said, her voice steady, I was alone. My husband had died. My savings were gone. I had nothing left except a broken heater and too many bills. She paused, looking at the faces before her. Then 2 little boys knocked on my door. They were freezing. They were scared. They needed help, and I let them in. She found Lucas and Mason in the front row. Both boys were grinning at her. I didn't know what that would lead to. I didn't know that their fathers would come looking for them. I didn't know that 150 motorcycles would show up at my house. I didn't know that my life was about to change forever. She looked at Jack and Danny standing beside their sons. But here's what I've learned. Kindness isn't complicated. It's not about grand gestures or big donations. It's about opening your door when someone knocks. It's about seeing people who are struggling and choosing to help instead of looking away. Her voice broke, but she kept going. This foundation isn't about me. It's about all of us. It's about the community we build when we decide that no one should face their worst moments alone. She held up the honorary member vest she still wore to every event. I'm 75 years old. I never expected to join a motorcycle club. I never expected to run a foundation. I never expected to have a family again. She smiled at the crowd. But life is full of surprises, and sometimes the best ones come from the most unexpected places. The applause was deafening. People stood. Some cheered. Some cried. Eleanor stepped down from the stage and was immediately surrounded by hugs. That was amazing, Jack said. I meant every word. I know. That's what made it amazing. Later that night, after the crowd had dispersed and the celebration had ended, Eleanor sat in her chair at home with Lucas and Mason sleeping on her couch. Jack and Danny were in the kitchen cleaning up. Everything was quiet. Everything was peaceful. Eleanor looked around her house at the photos on the walls, the drawings on the refrigerator, the vest hanging by the door. This was her life now. This was her family. She closed her eyes and thought about Walter, about the life they had built together, about the love they had shared for 48 years. "I hope you're proud," she whispered. "I hope you can see how happy I am." The house creaked in the wind. The heater hummed steadily. And somewhere in the silence, Eleanor felt an answer. He was proud. He was at peace. And he was grateful that she had found her way home. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the anniversary, Eleanor Hartman turned 76. The celebration was the biggest yet. Over 400 people gathered at the community center in Iron Ridge. Families the foundation had helped. Bikers from every chapter in Montana. Friends and neighbors and strangers who had become family. Lucas, now 9 years old, stood at the podium and read a speech he had written himself. "Grandma Eleanor saved my life when I was soon. I was lost in a blizzard, and I thought I was going to die. But then I saw her door, and she let me in." His voice was steady, serious, mature beyond his years. "Some people think family is about blood, but I learned that family is about love. It's about showing up. It's about opening your door when someone needs you." He looked at Eleanor. "Grandma Eleanor opened her door for me, and she's been opening doors for people ever since. Not just real doors. Doors to hope, doors to help, doors to a better life." He paused, gathering himself. "I love you, Grandma Eleanor, and I'm proud to be your grandson, even if we're not related by blood. We're related by something stronger." He walked down from the podium and hugged her. "Happy birthday, Grandma." "Thank you, sweetheart. That was beautiful. I meant every word." "I know. That's what made it beautiful." That night, after everyone had gone home, Eleanor walked outside and looked up at the stars. The same stars that had watched over her on the night of the blizzard. The same stars that had seen 2 frozen children stumble to her door. The same stars that had witnessed everything that followed. "Thank you," she said softly. "To the universe. To Walter. To whoever was listening. Thank you for not letting me give up. Thank you for sending those boys to my door. Thank you for showing me that it's never too late to find family." The stars didn't answer. They never did. But Eleanor didn't need an answer. She already had everything she needed. She went back inside, checked on the sleeping boys one last time, and went to bed. For the first time in 3 years, she slept without dreaming, because her dreams had already come true. And on a quiet street in Iron Ridge, Montana, in a small house that had once been cold and empty and lonely, an old woman closed her eyes and smiled. She had opened her door on the worst night of her life, and the whole world had walked in. That was the truth Eleanor Hartman carried with her for the rest of her days, that kindness is never wasted, that love finds a way, and that sometimes the smallest act opening a door to 2 freezing children can change everything. She never forgot the blizzard. She never forgot the knock. She never forgot the moment she chose to let them in, because that choice had given her something she thought she'd lost forever. It had given her a family. It had given her a purpose. It had given her a home.